Hello and welcome back to After the Movies, the show where we talk about movies after you've seen them, and so spoilers and whatnot. My name is Luke, and with me is
Jonathan.
and we're here to talk about a movie that is very important to today's particular timeline because, well, Marty McFly just arrived in the present.
Like an hour or two ago, I think.
No, yeah, maybe. I actually didn't check the time.
Well, no, let's see, because it's California time.
Oh,
right?
California time.
So it's actually it's about to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, by the time you watch this, Marty McFly has arrived in Back to the Future 2, but we're not talking about Back to the Future 2 yet because, well, we're talking about Back to the Future 1 because, yes,
And
Back to the Future.
It's the thing that started it all.
And honestly, it's the stronger of the movies, in my ever so humble opinion.
I would agree with that.
Okay, so jumping right into this movie here, the opening sequence I think is great because it actually reminds me of Rear Window, where you're kind of panning over stuff, and it's just this really long thing. And like Rear Window, where you've got this information being shown you and told to you through various mechanisms, this one shows and introduces all of the major themes. We introduced to Doc, we're introduced to plutonium, we're introduced to the dog, we're introduced to time, we're introduced to all these pieces, and even a little bit of who Marty is as a person and who Doc is as a person, all in the span of this really long, kind of introductory sequence. And so for me, that is a great way to open a movie. Although personally, I like things fast, but this worked, and it kept my interest. And even now, I enjoy it. And the ticking clocks it's so humorous and kind of quirky fun that kind of sets the tone and the world that you're walking into.
I think it's good to mention too that is a really good opening sequence, but I also wonder how well that played on the page. Like if you were looking at the script, if you would have read that and you would if because the shot, you don't write the shot in the script. You don't say, and we move slowly across all the clocks. Maybe there might be some of that, like we look slowly at a few multiple clocks, but I have not read the script, but I wonder how that came across on the page, because essentially it's got a lot of exposition in kind of the cliche ways, like there's a TV that tells you that some plutonium got, and when you're reading the script, all you're doing is going, okay, well, that's going to show up later, right? But, that's great. I think it's a great idea, the sense of you've got the page, and that process from the page to the screen, and how, truthfully, it matters how you shoot it. It matters what shot you choose. It matters how you choreograph that sequence, because what you're really talking about is how well that information that might come on the page that we need to know is delivered by essentially, it's really a couple different shots, but it looks like one long shot, like you said, really slowly, and they're revealing things, but it's all revealing things visually and slowly, and so it works. Whereas on the page, in the script, you'll know those things, they'll tell you those things, but I would wonder if I might, as a critiquer, be like, well, I wonder if you can spice this up somehow and make it more interesting. It's one of those things where if you know how you're going to shoot it, and that's coming across, that makes or breaks the scene.
Right.
How you shoot that scene makes or breaks, and then you can say that about everything, but sometimes you read a good sequence between two characters or whatever, and you just see how it's going to come together. It's like, the writing tells you how this movie's going to be.
Right.
Other times, I wonder how much you have to kind of say, well, this needs to happen. How do we make this a good scene? How do we make this something interesting? I feel like that's probably a really good instance of that happening in that moment. Is just, we got a lot of exposition to do. Let's make it an interesting sequence of just a shot. And that's the other thing, right? It's just moving, goes down and moves back, and then we go down. we fall. Like that's all. That's the whole shot, and they're communicating so much. So it is really good. But it's really good on multiple levels, I think, too.
Yeah, and I mean, your set design has to be able to handle that, where you're setting it up properly. So it's just really good.
And just a quick tip, I've heard that apparently that setup for all those clocks was just ridiculous. When they would try their one shot and when they had to reset, there's guys that had to go behind the walls and stuff and get every single clock to be set back at the right time, all in sync.
For a pan that's going to go on for a long time, and then a believable amount of time for him to amp up everything and to push it before the clock strikes 8, so that we know that it's 20, like all that, like yes. And actually, when the movie starts and it's like 10 minutes tell, and having watched it before, that it's going to go off at 8, you're like, this is a long time, and it's like, oh yeah. Oh man, then that happens, right? This is all happening, and then it's going to hit right at the 8 o'clock. Wow! So I think that's good times. Other things that I really like about this movie are just the sheer number of themes and ideas that they introduce at various times. Where you've got Principal Skinner, you've got Doc, you've got Biff, you've got his mom and dad, you've got all of these different pieces that are set up and then you're going to echo back through again, and then you're going to see the big, change reveal at the end of the movie. And I just love all the little pieces that they slip in there. Girls calling boys. I would never. And then it comes back around like it's so gorgeous. I love that.
It's true. Back to the Future may be a lot of time travel movies in general actually do a great job of the plant and payoff mechanic that you may or may not have learned. The idea of here's some information, plant it, and then it's going to come back to be important later, and hopefully you disguise it enough or you weren't thinking about it, so when it comes back, it's a payoff, right? It's joy. And time travel movies constantly do, especially Back to the Future, right? Every single shot, like you said, everything they're doing is showing you what 1985 in this guy's world looks like, right? The people, what they look like, the school, what it looks like, the clock tower. I mean, everything he does. And then the next sequence after that, when he goes to the 50s, is how all those things are completely different, right? How they're different back in the 50s. So it is.
Yeah, it looks almost new. They really clean this place up,
Yeah.
So that's really good.
And there's a lot of genres in this movie too. Like it's a time travel movie, it's an adventure movie, and it's a comedy. And I don't know about you, but every time I think about this movie, the first one that comes to mind, even though I know it's a time travel story, the first thing that comes to mind is always comedy. I think of Back to the Future almost purely as a comedy. And it's got time travel, it's got adventure, it's got plenty of things going on.
It's got awkward romance too.
It's got awkward romance, for sure. But yeah, I think of this movie primarily as a comedy, which, I don't know, a lot of movies have been doing that. Anyway, so, comedy, Back to the Future.
It's good.
It is good. But is there anything in this movie that you don't like? I mean, it's a classic.
Right.
1980s classic. There's so many people who love Back to the Future, and rightfully so. It's a really good movie. But is there anything in there that's like, hey, I shouldn't be here, or this didn't work?
In the first one, I can't think of anything.
That's
huge.
That's huge.
Because normally while I'm watching a movie, I'm like, okay, it's getting boring around now. Okay, but no, it keeps moving. I think there's a little bit probably towards the end with Doc setting up the lightning experiment, and then just how they drag that out to try and build tension. I think I get a little bored at that point in time because I'm just like, it's clear that he's going to do it. Would we just get to that moment now? So there's some just pacing issues right there toward the end.
I will say this: the one thing that comes to mind is so we have the big moment with Biff trying to take advantage of Lorraine, and then his dad shows up and finally stands up for himself and stands up to Biff and puts him down, and they get together and they go to the dance, right? And that's really, especially if you ever remember the movie, that's the moment you think of as that's the change.
Because it is the change.
It's the change.
It's great.
But there's also in the movie there's another sequence that they try to play where they're dancing and
they cut in,
and the guy cuts in and he's like a total jerk about it. It's like watching it every time.
True.
It's this added tension layer they're trying to put in where it's like, I'm still disappearing. Why is it? And he can't play the guitar. And it's like, oh no, I had it's out of my control. The thing And I guess there's some level where I can see that playing in the sense of it's this idea of you planned for everything, you tried to take care of it, and then all of a sudden it could all fall apart at a moment's notice.
Right. And you can't do anything about it. But honestly, he couldn't do anything about it before because he was locked in the trunk. So yeah.
Right. But and that's the other thing too is I think there's two separate things happening there. There's the first time with Biff is not. I mean, George is standing up for himself, but in a lot of ways he's standing up to Biff. He's standing up really for her.
Right.
And that's that's made very clear.
Right.
It's when she gets hurt, when she gets bothered, that he decides to change right then and there. The second one is more about him standing up for himself because it's more of it's up to him to go and get her or not. Like she doesn't like it, but it's not the same as she's not in danger, right? So it's not like he has to go save her in the same way anymore. It's more of a, will you go and stand up for yourself and say, no, you don't, I belong here, you don't belong here. Like, get out of here. So I get it in a sense of maybe that's what it's trying to do is say, so we have the moment where he stands up to Biff. We also have a moment where he stands up for himself.
Yeah, he doesn't just rescue the girl. He also goes after the girl because he wants her.
Right, and I can see that, and I can see how it's important to the story. At the same time, every time I watch this movie, that sequence is the one thing that does not play for me very well.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It always feels, maybe it's because the other one's so good, and so you're ramping up to it, right?
Yep.
And then this one's just kind of it's so sudden. and it's quick, and it's good that it's quick, but it's like it just feels random almost. It's like, and you know, if he somehow didn't go and get her, as an audience, like it would be unforgivable, right? You'd be like, how in the world? It doesn't even make sense.
Well, it doesn't make sense because that's not the thing. I mean, that doesn't fit with the world. It doesn't fit with anything that's going on with that. Okay, so yeah, I could see that, but it's so it'd be those few scenes towards the end where you're just adding tension, and I don't need it. It's like even with the doc getting shot, which is important, but even there, I'm just like Just get it over with now. Come on. But
interesting.
I think the first time watching it, you care
a lot.
But it's all those end sequences where it's just like, okay, we're getting back, we're doing all this stuff. Did it work? And just I want to see it play out, and I don't want to sit around waiting for you to get to the point.
So maybe too many climaxes.
Maybe.
Because it's not a problem. Because you want to see all the payoffs. Like you want to see the resolution. You want to see like, oh man, he's got the car and he's got the girl still there. His mom and dad are all better. Like
they're great now. Yeah.
Right. You want that.
I always wear a suit to the office. But everything else. Okay, so maybe it's too much like Lord of the Rings, where it's like, and now you walk into the frame and go, ah, and then the next person walks in.
No, that would be too many resolutions. Like that's too many.
Okay, fair.
That's the thing. Lord of the Rings has one giant climax.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Yep.
You're all over the place, but it's one climax. Yep. Back to the Future has 1, 2, maybe 3.
Sure.
Maybe 4
maybe
climaxes?
4. Maybe.
Because you've got the stand up to Biff. You've got, if you're going to count it, the cut in.
Yep.
You've got he gets back to the
lightning strike. Yep.
And is Doc alive or dead?
Right.
Can he save Doc? Right.
Right.
And they're 4 pivotal moments, and it's the I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'd never thought about that. The Back to the Future, as much as it's a really excellent movie, that may be one of its. If it has flaws, that might be one of them. That may be the issue. It's just, oh man, we've got so many different things happening, and I'm sure. I mean, it's the roller coaster ride.
Yep.
You know. But
I've never really liked roller coasters, and that one, it's like, okay, just get it over with. I don't know. That's my feeling for that one.
Really, well, the whole thing with Doc, though, if you're going to set up Doc getting shot, you can't not have the tension of going to get him.
Sure, but maybe if we cut back a little bit on all the other ones, maybe I'd be,
I'm still of the opinion that if you cut out the cut in, so to speak.
Yep.
If you took that out, you wouldn't really be losing anything. I do sense the idea that maybe the story, like he doesn't stand up for himself, but we wouldn't necessarily care because we would see that he's better at the end anyway. So
we could do that.
I guess it's my one. That's, if anything, that sequence, that area is the thing that comes to mind. That's the problem, if anything. Also, check out Robert Zemeckis being awesome as a director.
Seriously.
And people don't look like CGI characters. Like,
it's wonderful.
And I don't know. He's just Robert Zemeckis doing some really good work back.
Really good.
This is the stuff that we fell in love with the guy for. Like this is the best stuff he ever did.
Absolutely. Okay, and then we were talking a little bit about this as a time travel movie and what really works well with that. Not only do you have your payoffs, not only do you have all these great this experience, this theme of seeing who your parents were, discovering the reality of who they were, how that relates to where they got to. And how you don't like that, it's like, well, they're just my parents when we're living through it. But then once you go and live through their shoes when you're their peer, like what is that like? And going through all of that, and then ultimately a time travel movie where you make the world better by tweaking things in the past, like that. That's great. I really liked that. It's not a we just have to reset to 1 and we have to get everything back to the way it was and pretend like nobody, but like, you shouldn't interact with anybody. Wait, have you interacted with it? Well, only my parents. It's good. And maybe my mom has the hots for me. It's great with all of that because we get to see it change for the better. And that
is rare. You definitely that's definitely rare for a time travel movie. And that's the other thing, being a blockbuster fun movie. The amount of work that it takes to make that happen, it's interesting. It's all relational, right? It's all like he deals with his dad, he deals with his mom, he deals with different people, and it's about the relationships there. And really, can he really inspire his dad to take a stand? Can he really, can that get resolved? And it's a relational issue
Mm-hmm.
and a situation issue that he doesn't really get to control. Unlike a lot of other time travel movies where it's like you've got to go back and kill the person to stop everything, or you got to go back and make sure this thing was never built, or whatever, right? And then those almost always end this loop. They're a loop, or it's some sort of you actually are the person creating the thing that And it's interesting because there's it's every time travel's got the idea of the loop, because the whole thing is you are going to see or you have seen the consequences. Right. So it's always about like how do you stop that, change that, and that's the whole thing about time travel. And if there's any sort of loop in Back to the Future, it's Marty.
A loop forward.
Right, and it's Marty. And like that's the thing. He sees how he's in similar situations to his parents.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if anyone's going to break the loop, it's first got to be him. Right? And it's kind of interesting that it's more of a generational, a real thing that you might understand, even not time traveling, because you are someone's kid, whatever they went through, whoever they are, you're not necessarily going to be them, and how are you going to be different, and how are you similar, and some of those things. But yeah, it's interesting to go back and the idea of the kid saves the parent or inspires the parent.
Yeah. Well, and I like that it's not. That's a great point. It's not a saving or a dismantle this bomb or run through this in time or blah blah blah. It's just, can you, and without even trying. The way he gets there is by accident. It's happenstance. But then once he's there, it's, can you make a positive difference in someone else's life such that it transforms the future without even trying? Like you're not, like, that's not even your goal. That's not your mission. Like it just it happens. And so the surprise that he gets to have of like, walking into breakfast and like falling over because it's unbelievable what it's good because we get to have the same surprise with him of, oh wow, things are different. Like it wasn't just that I reset everything and that I didn't, vanish into the nether. It's that there's actually improvement because of it, and I like that.
That is good. That's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Back to the Future.
Totally. Yeah, it's good. And so apropos for this period of time, because, this is when Marty McFly arrived. So we'd like to know how you like this movie, because it's great. And if you didn't like it, well, I don't know why. I don't know why. What's wrong with you?
You're in the minority. I'm telling you that right now.
So, yeah. Thank you guys so much. Oh, man, I clicked that button wrong. There we go. Thank you so much for joining us for After the Movies. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.